Good evening, everybody. This is Cherri Gregg, and this is Real Talk with Cherri. It is Tuesday, and it is 8 o'clock. This is our second show of the week. Real Talk with Cherri is my personal community give back during these trying times. We air every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Stream live on Facebook and on YouTube. So please tag a friend and share this video. We got a lot to talk about today. A lot has been happening. We heard that Mayor Jim Kenney has said he will not up the budget for Philadelphia police by $14 million. That was on the table. We'll talk about that at 8:30. We have two guests, Councilmember Kenyatta Johnson, also State Representative Jordan Harris. They've been busy ever since mass protests began over the death of George Floyd. Can't wait to talk about that. You guys know that criminal justice reform is one of my issues. So please tag a friend and share this video. And I want to just take a moment and say, what's up? Turn down this right here and just say what's up to everybody who's in here. Hey, Kazar, Janice, Sarah Ashley, so many other people tuning in. Thank you so much. Please tag a friend and share this video. And so I want to kind of talk about, I'm a journalist, as you guys know, storyteller, truthful storyteller, documentarian, all those things. And been a member of National Association of Black Journalists and Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists for about a decade. I'm just a member now, no longer in leadership, but you know, it definitely, advocacy is a part of what we do as journalists, right? So a few days, last week, a headline surfaced, and we were all like in the middle of dealing with rioting, looting in our city of Philadelphia. We were covering the aftermath of it. And then this headline hit the news right here. It said, "Buildings Matter Too," is a play on words, of course, dealing with the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'll give you a little bit, if you can't see everything, it said, "Buildings matter too. Yes, they can be rebuilt, while lives are forever lost, but that doesn't mean they will be." Now, this was done, this was a column that was done by the architecture columnist, Inga Saffron. It was a very nuanced article. And I mean, if the article had been published in a couple of weeks, it probably would have gotten the finger or gotten sniffed at, but it wouldn't have suffered the type of backlash that it did, because the backlash, y'all, to that was swift. And of course, the Philadelphia Inquirer apologized, but the snowstorm continued. PABJ responded, of course. They said, by co-opting the activist battle cry Black Lives Matter for a tone-deaf headline, Philadelphia Inquirer antagonized an already intense national conversation on race. And please, you guys, you know I love comments. I will put some questions in here. Our next guest will be a part of the discussion. So he'll be in a position, hopefully, to answer some of these questions. And ABJ even weighed in. They said, even vaguely suggesting a parallel between loss of buildings and the loss of lives is inappropriate. Want to hear what you guys think. Put your comments in the live here. Stan Wisnowski, top editor of the Philadelphia Inquirer, a couple of days ago, resigned. His last day is coming up on Friday. Lisa Hughes, the publisher of the Philadelphia Inquirer, accepted his resignation. She called the headline an internal memo offensive and inappropriate, and said the newspaper needed a more diverse workforce. And so why? I mean, a lot of people probably have no real understanding what happens in newsrooms, how stories are made, how the sausage is made, who's assigned what, who makes the headlines, why race matters in some cases when we're covering stories, specifically stories like the ones we've been covering in the past few days. You guys saw me on the front lines doing lives in the middle of chaos in our city. Did that matter? We'll talk about that. The fact that I'm a Black woman, did that matter? Could any journalist, do we need diversity on who's covering? We'll talk about that a little bit. And so I want to invite our guest, and I'll just tee it up because I've known Michael Days for a number of years. He's a stellar journalist. He's an advocate, and he was named Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion at the Philadelphia Inquirer, at the Philadelphia Media Network, in July 2018. He was vice president and editor for Reader Engagement before that. And before that, he was editor for the Philadelphia Daily News. So I want to just invite Mike Days in. Mike, welcome to Real Talk with Cherri. How you doing?
Hey, Cherri, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming up and being willing to talk to folks about this. I just got to ask you the first question, like, what in the world happened, Mike?
You know, we screw up, and that was probably, you know, and I've had to apologize on TV and radio, Solomon Jones and other folks about things we have done. But on this occasion, in the midst of all this, in the midst of an insurrection, and in the midst of all the focus on Black Lives Matter, we just messed up.
Yeah.
And how did it happen? We can talk about that a little bit, because nobody's really sure how it happened. But, you know, somebody clearly thought it was clever, and it wasn't clever.
Yeah. And so just explain to us how, just with a basic understanding, because we do have some journalists watching right now, but most of these people are, they partake of media, but they have no idea what really happened behind the scenes. How could someone let something like that, how does that slide through?
Well, you know, that's what we're really looking at now. How can we, you know, what is our process? If a number of people saw this, a number of people have to see this headline, how do we make people feel empowered to say, this is not appropriate? We need to really take a look at that. So, you know, in American journalism in 2020, somebody should have raised their hand and said, let's take another look at that headline, as opposed to not taking a really good look at that headline.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not gonna be here with you and say, oh my God, we looked at that and everybody thought it was fine. You know, you understand American journalism in 2020, that we have fewer people, that more people are doing more things, but that's incumbent on us to raise your hand and say, did anybody look at this headline? Do we think this is really appropriate? And then clearly, I mean, there's no way to support it.
Yeah, and I want to give a little bit, because during I was named PABJ Journalist of the Year alongside, I was Broadcast Journalist of the Year. Mensa Dean was named Print Journalist of the Year. During his speech at the PABJ gala, Mensa said he was the only Black news reporter at the Philadelphia Inquirer, and he actually criticized the paper for that being the reality. Is it true? Is Mensa the only Black reporter on the news reporter, so to speak? And I would say he was on vacation that week.
He's the only reporter in the news desk. Here's what I would say to you, and I'm not trying to over defend the paper. I'm going to say there've been 8 hires this year. 7 of those hires have been people of color. And now here's the real deal here. Like a lot of media organizations, I'm thinking KYW in the same place. Newspapers, and I'm sure, you know, I spent a whole lot of years driving up and down the highway listening to KYW. People are consuming media in a different way. So we put the resources into how do we build up our digital component? How do we make sure that we've got the right people in place who understand the analytics, who know what people are looking at, who kind of can try to figure out how do we get more readers online? Because that's where it's all going. It's all going digital. That was the commitment of the company to go digital. Now, you know, if we had not hired any people of color, we've had some really significant people of color, but we're taking a really good look now. We have to have more people on the street who reflect the people who live in Philadelphia, and that's what we're working on now. But for the last year, almost 2 years, most of the hires have been for digital operations, jobs that didn't, you know, I'm an old head. So the jobs I'm really learning how to understand: audience jobs, producers jobs, digital jobs, analytics jobs. So you can look at, okay, who's coming in? What are they reading? How can we get them to read more? And more important, and it's just as important, how can we get them to read more and also take out a digital subscription? That has been the focus. Is that appropriate? Our readership, your listenership can decide that, but we're thinking a lot about that right now.
Yeah, and I mean, because there are black reporters at the news desk, and so I just want to point that out to folks who know Janice Armstrong, who know Elizabeth Wellington, who know Melanie Burney, and these individuals do other things than what we're talking about being on the street. Do you think having another black reporter, because Mensa was on vacation and we're allowed to take vacation during this unrest, do you think if another black reporter had been there, maybe this would have gotten caught? Somebody would have said something?
It's not so much the reporters. You understand this stuff. And people who write headlines generally don't report. They write headlines. They fix up stories. They edit stories. They do all of that. It's just a worst case scenario, to be honest. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it. When folks are in deadline, they got a lot going on, and somebody should have said, let's take a look at this headline.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my dog wants to weigh in here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put these earbuds on because people are telling me that they're having some stuff. Actually, these are not the right earbuds, but hopefully people can hear me. Let me know if you're still having sound issues, and I apologize if you are. Do I sound clear to you?
Very clear.
Okay, good. And so, I want to move on from there. So they hired you a couple of years ago, Mike, because this was approved. Everybody was happy when you were hired as Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion. What exactly is your role?
Well, my role is to really to strategize about how do we make not just a newsroom, but the entire company be more reflective of our community. Mm-hmm. How do we make sure that we have people who are in leadership positions and in the rank and file that reflect Philadelphia? And we made a lot of progress. And the reality is when you look at the hires, and just in the newsroom over the last 2 years, they have been, for the most part, almost close to the majority have been people of color. But most of them have not been news jobs. And that's where we need, I've been arguing that's where we need to be really focused. If you look at who is the labor organizer, who handles our negotiations with our guild, which is our union, a major union at the Inquirer, is a brother, Tony Cuffey. Yeah. Who makes sure that your papers, hopefully your papers on your lawn or at your front desk every day, or in your front step every day, is a brother. So there are people who are in significant roles at the Inquirer, but we've got to, and everybody's acknowledging that we've just got to do a better job of making sure the people who report on us, report on the Philadelphia, are more reflective of the city. Now, we did the digital thing, and we have to do the digital thing because, while print still pays the bills, how many people? How many of our cousins, young cousins, or whatever, or people we know who are in their 20s and 30s and 40s are actually picking up a newspaper? Not many.
Yeah, but the shapes of coverage are the voices of the people. Are the key people that you have to keep diverse. And I want to just say, because Philadelphia is 44% African American. It's 35% white. It's 12% Latino, and we have a few percentage points of Asian American. So why are there systems in place that make it difficult? We've been talking about this issue not just at the Inquirer, but at every news organization. And I'm a lawyer too, law firms too. What systems do you see that are in place that make it obviously difficult to make sure that who's telling the stories reflect the community?
Well, like I said earlier, we have focused on the digital piece. We have made very diverse hires in total the digital piece. And I am arguing now that we need to really take a look at who's covering our stories, who's representing us, who speaks for us, Well, who are people seeing on the street? The reality is, if to have a Mensa Dean, and we've got a number of people on the street, and the features, whatever. Cassie Owens is an exceptional reporter. We got a Rashad Harnett who won an Emmy. And the Inquirer never won. And that's a whole nother world. But in the video world, we're really just being the kick butt. But sort of the old school, old fashioned, just be on the street, knocking on doors, trying to figure out who's covering what's important, what are the important stories. I'm of the belief, and I've always been of the belief, that every reporter should know how to cover everything when they have to. But it does mean a great deal when you have black folks on the street covering our community. So nobody's arguing that we don't need to do a better job of that. We must do a better job.
Yeah, and so how do you kind of move forward from there? Because before we go to that part, I want to point out that there was in the newsroom advocacy. What was going on behind the scenes when this headline hit print and everybody heard about it?
Well, you've seen all the emails and the memos from our journalists of color. Needless to say, they weren't happy, and it was just not the people of color. How do we do this? Let me tell you something. I've had to be on Solomon Jones and other folks, offering apologies for all kinds of stuff. But in this moment, in this heightened moment, when we're all concerned about how black folks are being perceived, the fact that we all saw a black man murdered, really, on video in Minneapolis. People are not feeling like saying, okay, I accept your apology, and they're not. How did you let this happen? And that, there's no really good answer for that.
Yeah, and Stan Wisnowski, he resigned. They accepted his resignation. Who will be in charge of finding his replacement?
Well, the publisher ultimately be in charge. There are a number of us have been assigned, including me, to take a look at, how do we move forward? What do we need to do? What do we need to change? How do we make the company better? How do we make the company more receptive to Philadelphia? How do we? Because here, let me tell you a little something. And I know you know this. I'm saying it for your listeners. It wasn't that long ago that we depended primarily on advertising to pay our bills, to pay our salaries. That's changed. We are dependent on people who read us, listen to us, care about us. So, the listeners really are in charge in terms of, because they can decide, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not interested in the Inquirer. I'm not interested in what they're putting there. So, they really set the tone in terms of, okay, if you want my dollars, if you want my money, if you want me to subscribe, you better make sure that I care about this content. And it doesn't mean they're expecting a whole lot of, lollipop kind of stuff, because I don't think they are, but they want to be respected. And so it's on us to make sure that the content we're providing is not insulting.
Yeah. How do you rebuild the trust? Your newsroom, your journalists of color, 30 of them called in sick and a sick out. And then I understand that lots of people decided they're going to pull their subscription. How do you, number one, rebuild the trust within the newsroom? Let's start there. And then outside of the newsroom.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on about that now. It's not about, you can't really say much more. What you have to do is prove to people that you deserve, that their trust is deserved, that you have to make them feel like, not make them, that's not the right way to put it, but you have to rebuild that trust by making sure that what we're producing is significant content, that we're not really doing stuff that upsets our readers and the reporters. Now, news is news. You know what I'm saying? When stuff happens, you have to just tell the truth, but we have to just tell the truth in a way that is respectful.
Yeah. And so do you hire people? Do you go find journalists to hire?
One of the things I've been responsible for the last year or so is a program we call the LendFest Fellows. And they are young people, primarily out of college. Maybe they've been out of college a year or so, who can begin to help further add diversity to our newsroom. So we're in our second class now. There were 6 initial ones. There are 4 that had full-time jobs. There are another 6 now who are in the program. So, I mean, that's a big part of that. And the other thing is, I want to make sure not just, my job is beyond the newsroom. How do we make sure that we have people in the pipeline and newsroom and sales and, and other jobs in the company that are so important now? Product development is a huge thing now.
Yeah.
How do you get your news? Are you doing it on the phone, or how are you getting your news? So all that has become a significant thing.
Yeah. So is getting a street reporter or getting folks who do the knocking on the doors, is that now a priority given the backlash that you all have been suffering in recent days?
Well, I'm not going to speak for the whole company at this moment, but it's been made clear by me and other folks that we need to do a much better job in terms of who's on the street. This all does not fall on Black and brown people. This, one of my major jobs is, and it sounds cliche, but cultural competency. Everybody needs to understand what Philly's about or what the region's about, and how do we begin to have coverage that reflects the region. So we're doing, we're doing all kinds of workshops now and seminars and just trying to get people to think, the reality is Black and brown people have to think about all kinds of things all the time in terms of how we cover stuff, who we are, where we are, who we're talking to, are we talking, mixing it up? And that has not been the case for the mainstream, I would argue.
Yeah. And obviously, Mensa is an excellent reporter. And I also want to ask you, do you think, because when you're the only one and you're covering, big issues like this, it's like you need a team to cover it with you. How does it feel? I mean, you've been, you're a Black journalist. I mean, how is it when you have to carry the weight of, because you're not just reporting, you're also policing in some regards. When something is insensitive, people come to you. What do you think? You're Black. What do you think about this? Right? And is this racist? You're doing a lot more than just your job. Could you talk about that a bit? And it must be difficult for someone who's the only in a newsroom. You've probably been the only in your newsroom at some point.
Well, let me just say this, I'm telling my age here, but 40 years ago, I was in Rochester, New York, and when we were fed up with what the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle wasn't doing, there were a number of us who marched down the street to corporate. I mean, this is before USA Today. You know nothing about this, but before USA Today, there was a Rochester Democrat and Chronicle where I worked, and we said, we need help. We need people who understand the community. We need editors of color. We need more reporters of color. We weren't doing a whole lot of color in those days. We need Black reporters. We need Black editors. And so here's where I am at this point as my career is sort of coming around that bend. This stuff needs to be institutionalized. So that's my commitment, really, to say, the next generation doesn't need to be talking about the same stuff we've been talking about for 40 years. You know what I'm saying? That we need to figure out how do we put in place systems to say we have an institution that understands that diversity matters, and beyond the diversity, we have an institution that understands that we have a diverse readership, and they come from from the South. They were born in Philadelphia. They Black, they brown, they white, they're immigrants. They are whatever. But they all, I think people do. And it's interesting to see now. It's interesting to see right now, while we've struggled with circulation. Circulation is so dramatic because people, I think, are finally get to the point they realize news matters because they want to live. Everybody wants to be alive. They want to know where can they go, what's going on, can they go to a restaurant. So so how do you sustain that? So I really, and I've been real clear with my, with the publisher and everybody else that let's come up with a system that is sustainable so that we aren't trying to reinvent this thing every 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Because I have lived through all of this.
Yeah, because we keep having these same issues. We have a question from Greg Brookley here. He says, what's taking so long to hire Black reporters?
Well, yeah, like I said earlier, we have focused on the digital piece, and I don't think anybody wants to make any excuses for that, because these jobs didn't exist 8, 9, 10 years ago. We got a kick butt analytics person who can tell you who's reading what. Are they reading the story? How long they own the story? Or are they reading anything else? Where do they live? All of that. So all that, in 2020, all that stuff is very, very important. But what's clear is that what also needs to be important is having people working for your shop who connect with the communities.
Yes. We have another question from Rosanna Haynes, and she says, do any of those persons of color who work at the Inquirer, do they have significant input on what's published?
Yes. Now, when you say what's published, we're not just talking about what's in the newspaper. We're talking about what's online. The majority of people now are getting their content, their news from, in my shop, from Inquirer.com. So they're reading 24/7. They're looking at things that appeal to them. And the thing about digital is, it's not like dropping a paper, although print still pays the bills. But print, you don't know how people are reading whatever they're reading. In digital, you know exactly what people are reading. You know how long they're spending on a story. You know how much time they're spending on sports or features or news stories. We know that for the long period now that if you went to our site that looks at the metrics,
and I think,
and then they got the top 7, 8 stories all about insurrection.
Yeah, and that's
Go ahead.
So having people of color definitely matters. And Kateria says, why didn't anyone feel empowered to say that headline was inappropriate? Did anyone think it was fine? I think are you still investigating the thought process here? And it seems
I don't know if we're investigating, but there's a cultural issue there that we need to fix.
Yeah, but nobody realized that.
There's a cultural issue there. We need somebodies need to say, "Are you kidding me?" So that's what that's one of the things we're looking at now. But
yeah.
Sometimes, and you know what? And let me just say this. I mean, I'm telling too much about myself. But when was the last Summer Olympics? 4 years ago. We at the Daily, and I was I came up on the Daily News side, and we had a picture of the gymnasts, female gymnasts. Everybody loves them. They're cute and they jumping all around. And there were 2 sisters who were superstars, and we had their names mixed up.
Yeah,
you know how you may remember that.
Yeah.
My life was a living hell for a couple of days because there was really no way to explain it, how we did that. And everybody assumed, these white people can't tell black people apart. The reality is that this was a black editor that did that.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just never know where it's going to come from. But, that's why you have to be so persistent in terms of we have to just be excellent. And if we can't be excellent, then we need to just go home.
Yeah. And I want to just point out, because people say diversity, and when diversity has become so broad and amorphous at this point, and I know a lot of people, because Philly, as I mentioned, 44% Black, I know you guys have a pretty decent number of diverse journalists, but the number of Black journalists specifically in a 44% Black city isn't very significant. Is that fair?
I'm not looking at the numbers right now. We need to do better. But we do. I mean, if you start, just the people there are Black folks in the newsroom and all kinds of different jobs. Every department now there is most of the departments have an editor that is Black. In my lifetime, I never thought I'd see the food editor is Jamila Robinson. It's a Black woman. the editor in charge of Sports Digital is a brother. So I'm happy to have been live to see this. So I mean, we're making progress. We just, black people can't be running around like, they're referees trying to run from here to the other, trying to take everything. Everybody's got to be responsible for putting out products, whether they're print or online, that are respective of everybody. And so that's my job, to make sure that, and it's going to take a minute, but everybody's culturally competent to say, what the hell are you doing? What the hell are we thinking? Why would we do that headline?
And so your point is that don't matter what race or background a journalist has, they should have caught that headline.
That's where I'm coming from. I believe that.
Yeah.
If we're making the same amount of money, you need to figure this out. We all need to figure it out.
And that's fair.
Or they need to say to somebody, why are you sure this is the right headline? I'm having some second thoughts about this. You, John, Mary, Jane, come over here and take a look at this headline, because I'm not feeling this. And that's got to fall on everybody. That is not our, we're there, and we have, we're people of color, and we have kind of under stuff, but this is everybody's responsibility. And I view that's my job, to get us to that point.
Yeah. And we're going to take a couple more minutes and wrap up, because we do have our second segment about to start, but I want to give you a couple comments from folks. Sheldon Sneed said that means that person of color needs to be on every media platform and be included in meetings about topics such as this is what PBJ has fought for decades, inclusion. That's what he's talking about. And let me just see, there are other folks saying different things. Hania Sharp Brown says it has become a trend. Diversity is not just putting a person of color or a woman in a position. Too many are forgetting that inclusion part. Companies throwing inclusion around like Oprah giving out cars. Janice Armstrong, one of your most respected columnists, says Philadelphia is a predominantly Black city. We need more Black reporters and editors. And so clearly, folk want more Black folks on the street. I mean, I'm sure people in the Latinx and Latino community want more Spanish-speaking reporters on the street, so that they can get their stories accurately covered without that language barrier. So every community wants this.
Absolutely. I hired Janice. I'm not gonna say how long ago that was, because she would come over here and spank me. But we definitely believe that. So we have to work at that, and it's a process. And so I think what has happened now with the insurrection and all this going on now is that people are paying a lot more attention to what do we look like in terms of who we have on the streets. I can't make any commitments about where that's going right now, but let me say, it's sort of like, how long has that Rizzo statue been up downtown? Couldn't get rid of it. Too much going on. I don't know. And nothing disappeared in the middle of the night. So, what our young people have done for us is said, we're going to raise some hell and y'all going to make some changes.
Look,
I'm all for that.
And as soon as the hell started raising and burning, fire started burning, everybody can move stuff in 24 hours.
It's the most remarkable thing, it takes me back to the 60s. So, you don't want that all the time, but sometimes you do need to get people's attention.
Yeah. And somebody, William Dotson, brought up Garnett City. He said Columbus, Ohio is now a Garnet City. The reporting is lean on Black engagement. They are just getting their feet wet.
I think that's my brother. I think that's Gannett. I think he's saying Gannett.
Oh, okay.
I think. Okay. In terms of that's a major company.
Okay, Gannett.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
Just reading. Melanie Burney says pay equity should be priority number one. Pay us based on the content of our journalism, not on the color of our skin. And I'll tell you, pay equity. Institutional racism has Black women getting paid less, has Black people getting paid less, and doing excellent work, getting awards and all this kind of stuff. And we're fighting for the bottom line because there's a lot of secrecy there. Is that part of what you guys are working toward, pay equity as well?
Yes. Okay. I mean, that's an area where it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
You just take care of it.
Yeah,
Can I do it by myself? No, but it is. There are a lot of people giving it a lot of attention.
yeah. Jasmine Sessom says that people call for peace, but peace doesn't accomplish what you need. She also says you owe us 37 cents. Jasmine of
37 cents.
And I got to give you a compliment here. Cheryl A. Mobley Stimson says, thank you for your transparency, Michael. Been knowing for a long time. Feel that your statements and positions can be trusted. Please continue to advocate for the community. Thank you. These are challenging times. So a lot of folks, thank you for coming on here, Michael. And I got to give Michael big ups because I've known him for years. He always answers the phone. He will come and take a challenge. He will be criticized and critiqued. And he takes the hits like a man or like a woman. I'm not even going to say man. You take it like a true professional. You take it like a true professional. But we want to see the change. We want to see the change. And so what's next? What's the next?
Well, I need to be a part of the change. And I know that. And I have to be part of the change because, you know, like I said earlier, I was in Rochester, New York. We were fighting for these same issues. That's been 40 years. And you know, we have, you know, I'm not, you know, trashing the Inquirer because there's no trash. We have been very deliberate. I mean, I will say this about Stan Wisnowski, who offered his resignation, was accepted. I've been in many meetings with him when he said, "We're not filling that job. I don't see any candidates of color. I don't see any finalists of color. Go back and let's look for some folks." It takes that kind of determination. And so, you know, I wish he didn't have to take the fall for that headline because he's a good dude, and he, you know, we wouldn't have gone from, I think a couple of years ago we were at 17% people of color in the newsroom, and now we're at 28%. So that's intentional. That doesn't happen just because.
Yeah.
But we need to be much more thoughtful about, okay.
Yep.
What do we look like on the streets? You know, and beyond trying to figure out the digital piece of which we're working on, because we've got some really kick butt folks who are of color working on that stuff. Ray Boyd, a Philly dude, went to Temple. I think you know Ray, a deputy editor for Audience.
Yep.
That's a big job. That's a big job in 2020.
It is.
You know?
And Mike, I got to wrap it up here.
Okay.
You know, and just say thank you for coming here. Final comments. Melanie Birdie said, write a check, show us the money, go Michael Days. Janice says, thank you, Michael Days, for what you do. Thank you, Mike, for coming on Real Talk with Cherri, talking about this issue, letting the hot water splash on you. And we look forward to the Inquirer making a change and not getting in this kind of hot water, you know, anymore. I know everybody's going to be prospecting those headlines as we deal with this crisis. So I wish you luck, Mike.
And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, Cherri. You know, we've known each other a long time now, and so I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. Wish you all the best. And people need to hold the Inquirer accountable and hold me accountable.
Yep.
And we'll do the best we can. Do better than we're the best. Okay.
Thank you. And tell your wife I said hello.
I sure will.
Thank you very much. So y'all heard from Mike Days. He came on. He put his chin out. Let y'all whack him. And I'll tell you this, on Thursday, he's very likely going to be in the meeting. The Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists just had their meeting tonight. They're going to be sitting down with the leadership over there. They are on top of things. You heard their statement earlier. They have been advocating hard. I mean, journalists of color have been carrying a lot of water in these days. We're traumatized the same way you guys are. Okay. This is our community being ripped to shreds as well. And it's our community we're going to piece back together. But I got to say, my next segment, we're going to be talking about some of the progress that has been made. You know, ever since the mass protest, ever since the looting, ever since the destruction, the focus has been on change. What can we do, right, to make things better? Well, last week I had the pleasure of going to a press conference near the Cato statue, you know, on the south side of City Hall. And I saw a coalition of young African-American leaders from the state level, from the city level, from local agencies all working together to create solutions for police reform. They created this document called Police Reform Proposals. Okay, it's a multi-page document, 5 buckets of proposals, and guess what? They got some folks to listen. So tonight, I'm really excited because I have Councilman Kenyatta Johnson on Real Talk with Cherri. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Cherri. How about yourself?
I'm very good. We were supposed to have Jordan Harris joining you. He's running late, so you're gonna carry it. You got it.
Sure.
And I want to say that the coalition, and I mean the coalition of Black leaders. I was very excited to see you all working together, elbow to elbow, masked up. Tell me first of all why y'all decided to create this group to get this work done.
Yeah, well, under the leadership of Jordan Harris, State Rep Jordan Harris, the majority whip, he decided to convene a group of leaders on the state level and the city level to focus on real reforms. You know, oftentimes when incidents like this take place, we protest, we have community meetings, and then people say, what's next? And so if you notice during the early part of the protest, Jordan was very quiet. I was very quiet. And during that time period, the working group was convening, having meetings through Zoom to look at what type of reforms could we introduce and get implemented to address the issue of policing here in the city of Philadelphia. And as you have seen, as a result, some of the reforms have been adopted today by the mayor. Some reforms last week have been adopted by the governor, Governor Wolf. Some of the reforms have been endorsed by the mayor of Pittsburgh. And so that's the result of a collective effort of not only just elected officials on the state level and the city level, but also Public Defender Care Bradford. She played a major role in guiding us through this process, as well as Kevin Harden, who used his brilliant legal mind to walk us through the pros and cons of the legislation that was going to be introduced. And so for me, it was a proud moment to really work with a group of collective people who are all African-American. Nobody's focusing on egos, nobody arguing, everybody coming together. We meeting on Sundays, right? And I got 2 toddlers. So, you know, for me, to take that time out and sit down, you know, with my colleagues and work with my colleagues on the state level to address this very, very important issue. And to get some things accomplished. I'm sorry, that's Sasha Blue. Excuse me.
Is it your dog?
Yeah, excuse me. It was inspiring to me. And most importantly, Cherri, I want to say this, Cherri, those group of young people, right? I'm kind of like the sophomore, right? But the group of young people who are at the table are passionate, strong advocates about our people. And I think that our city and our state has a bright, bright future.
Yeah. And I want to get some specifics because one of the big things, one of the big wins that happened today was Mayor Jim Kenney said that he will not, the budget will not include a $14 million increase to $19 million, excuse me, a $19 million. Let's get the millions right. Don't leave 19. $1 million off, sir.
Yes.
So it will not include a $19 million increase to Philadelphia police.
Yes.
When you heard that, first of all, what does that mean? Because everybody was upset that the police department was getting all this extra money and we were cutting all kinds of programs because of this pandemic.
Yes, that's correct. So first, I thank all of my colleagues. A total of 13 of us signed on to the letter of reforms that we put forth to Mayor Kenney. And the focus was making sure that we can't accept an increase to the Philadelphia Police Department. One, not only while we're coming out of a pandemic, right? But 2, when you talk about the issue of public safety and policing, we can't just focus on having a law enforcement budget, right? So you're slashing programs like parks and recreations, which means a lot of our playgrounds will have limited service hours during the summer. You can't slash programs like the Violence Prevention Office that focuses on preventing violence and preventing crime and preventing gun violence before it even happens. You can't focus on slashing support for our libraries where most people, when they come home from prison and they're looking for a job, they spend time during the daytime in the libraries trying to find ways to help them become gainfully employed. Those are like some of the key areas that were totally slashed, zero budgeted out, right? And as a result, the additional funding went to the Philadelphia Police Department. And so, you know, for me, I couldn't vote for that type of budget in good conscience, irregardless of what we're dealing with right now, right? I think the tipping point of George Floyd murder actually took us to a different level in terms of really examining everything around in terms of the police budget. But at the end of the day, that budget increase was totally unacceptable from the first place.
Yeah. And you think about that because, and I got to ask you this question, and I've been asking most of the leaders who have come on Real Talk with Cherri since this mass protest, since the looting. Do you think if things did not get turned up, sir, on this level, if you think that they didn't start smashing windows, you think we would have gotten the attention of the governor in this way, the mayor, and that they would have made the changes like that?
No, not at all. But this because in America, we always live in a capitalist society, right? And where did all the looting and the breaking down and the uprising take place at first? Downtown. The first place they moved into secure was downtown, right? Not the neighborhoods, right? Downtown, protecting rich people's property, right? And so civil unrest definitely played a major role and made people pay attention. And oftentimes people say, well, listen, you know, we can protest and organize and we shouldn't, you know, the looting, we want to condemn. Listen, I can't just say I support the looting, but I understand where the energy and the anger is coming from. You living in poverty, right? And you've been in the house for the last 3 months and you don't have a job. Unfortunately, when there's an uprising, you're taking out their energy and you will engage in certain types of looting and other types of issues that in the long run, some may say had a negative impact in our community. But at the end of the day, let's also look at the root cause of why people responded the way that they responded.
Yeah. And I have to tell you because and the Bristol
I don't want to cut you off, but I want to give you your props.
Oh.
Because I followed you on live while you was down there when they were looting. I seen you in Old Navy. I'm like, do I gotta call some people in South Philly to go down there and make sure you're cool? Because you like out and about. And I'm like, hold up. And you did great coverage. And so, you know, the powers that be need to know that the work that you do, you know, make sure they pay you like you know, handling your business. Because that was live, you know, and you definitely gave us an idea what was going on the ground. So I want to give you your props for that.
Thank you for that. A lot of people saw that live. And we just had Mike Days on Real Talk. You probably heard part of what his discussion is. The Inquirer getting dragged right now because they only have one black journalist who's on the street like me.
Yeah, you should have been dragged long
time ago. He was on vacation. So all hell broke loose and the brother on vacation.
On vacation.
Yeah. On vacation. We are allowed to take vacation. You know what I'm saying? You can't put all the pressure on one journalist. So, but I want to thank you for that. I don't want to get back to you guys because it was a beautiful sight to see all of you guys working together. Yes. So when you see our young people burning it up, did you feel like, yes, I understand, but we got to come up with these solutions for these so that we can calm this down? Did you feel almost like you had to?
Well, you had to do something because at the end of the day, I know that young people are tired of hearing our leaders just talk. Like, where's the action, right? And so when you talk about the protesting, right, it's good to protest, but what's going to be the long-term outcomes, right, of the protesting? And this is only the beginning. Now we're talking about police reform. Now everybody talking about racism and white privilege here in America. So what does that look like, right? If we're really going to have this conversation, right? Are we talking about reparations? Is it going to be Black Lives Matter for reparations, right? How many people are going to get behind that move? Because we've been dealing with systematic racism that has an impact on all areas of our lives. And so the death of George Floyd, I look at as a spiritual sacrifice to wake up people. And I don't believe that his death was in vain. Right, because now there's a heightened level of awakening to what we're dealing with, not only regarding police reform, but also we had the COVID-19 that also just gave us an idea of the health disparities. And now we want to have this conversation, including Sesame Street, about race, right? And so we need to move beyond, right, the conversation. Now, what does that really look like when we talk about righting some of the wrongs that actually kept us back as a people, right? And so that's where I'm at with it. And so being a part of this working group was, again, inspiring because here's concrete outcomes. But let's start looking at some other areas as well that we want to get some wins on. Again, the people who are dying when it comes to COVID-19, Black and brown people, they're still dying. Now, they didn't stop dying because we had civil unrest. They're still dying, right? And we recently had a win where the mayor stepped up and he supported the consortium of Black doctors, but they didn't in the beginning. It took some council people to put some pressure on the administration, which for me was a no-brainer. Why not work with these Black doctors that go out into our community to do the testing that they need and form a partnership if we're the ones who are most devastated when it comes to COVID-19. But back to the issue at hand, we need to focus on, through these reforms, building the integrity, right, and accountability between the law enforcement community and the African-American community. And I had to tell people, just because I don't support the increase, that doesn't mean I'm anti-public safety. I chair the special committee on gun violence. When someone's murdered in my neighborhood, I'm always on the front line. I'm always going to a funeral, right? I'm always fighting to make sure that the Office of Violence Prevention gets funding to help our young people so they don't stand on the corner.
And can we point out this because, part of this effort, and I'm doing an extensive discussion of this tomorrow on KYW News Radio, the issue of defunding police.
Yes.
Not that people have a lot of confusion. They think that means you don't want police, but the Office of Violence Prevention, a lot of these offices were losing money because of COVID-19, and yet the police were about to get $19 million more dollars, which would give more arrests, more this, but less actual preventative measures.
Yes, when you look at the Philadelphia Horticultural Society lawn care program, they hire felons. That program getting cut, right? When you talk about the Office of Violence Prevention, right? What that focuses on, helping young men get off the corner and don't carry guns, program is getting cut, right? They have another program that started called the Youth Adolescents Violence Reduction Program. This program focuses on young people between the ages of 18 and 24 who are most likely to be killed or to kill someone. That program cut, right? And so even when you talk about crime prevention and violence prevention, those programs were cut in favor of a law enforcement budget that basically focused on locking people up. And then just look at this. How do you get a $19 million increase when shootings are up around 26%, homicides, right? And shootings are still increasing, right? So what are you going to do with the extra $19 million? And your homicide rate and your shootings are going up as well. Like those are the type of questions
rate isn't even very good. They have like a third. They only solve a certain number of crimes. It's not like all these crimes is getting solved.
That's and the budget, so people will get a full understanding. The Philadelphia Police Department budget is $760 million. $760 million. And so we're at the point now where I'm begin advocating and let's look at all of their spending. Where's that $760 million going to? Because this was only a $19 million increase, right? But where's the 760 going is the question.
Yeah. And that's a lot. And I want to just before we got a few more minutes, but I want to talk about these specifics because there's a couple of things that are being adopted that I believe you guys have said are key to this. And before we go to listener viewer questions, I want you to just kind of tell us the things that you think are critical to this reform happening.
Well, one, I think it's critically important that we focus on the residency requirement, because if you notice, a lot of the officers that patrol African-American communities aren't from the city of Philadelphia. That plays a role when you talk about racism in the law enforcement community. When you look at transparency regarding the arbitration process, right? We have reforms that call for hearings to make sure the public has input prior to the ratification of the contract between the city and the police. And the reason why is oftentimes when bad officers engage in bad conduct, right, they go to arbitration, they get their job back, right? And that breaks down public trust because people feel like you're a cop and get away with murder. And that has been happening in the city of Philadelphia, i.e. Brandon Tate, his issue is still out there, it hasn't been fully addressed, right? That's another example. Also, there's going to be a separate and a new independent civil review board, right? That bill is going to be going in this up and coming Thursday that will focus on an independent board that will work toward holding accountable members of the Philadelphia Police Department when they engage in conduct that isn't becoming of being a Philadelphia police officer. And so that's also a major change in terms of this process moving forward. And so those are just some key ones, right, that we're paying attention to. But also we're going to continue to look at other modes of reform to make sure the process is transparent. You had officers who engaged in writing racist comments on Facebook some time ago, right? But that data still hasn't been provided to the public. And so we're pushing to make sure that when those type of incidents happen, that data is released. So it's transparent. And so a lot of this, besides accountability, is making sure that people in the community, people from the public, right, can understand what's going on from a disciplinary standpoint and making sure that people are held accountable when it comes to them not behaving as they should in terms of conduct becoming a Philadelphia police officer.
Yeah. And then someone asked, Michael Huff asked this,
Yes.
because you're talking about accountability, and he specifically raises the issue of what about the FOP's power? How does do the reforms? Because I mean, having this independent review, and we've already known about the Police Advisory Commission, which has zero teeth.
Yeah,
and
that's why we had creating a new one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so what about the FOP?
So when you talk about the FOP, right? So the reason why we have a bill that focuses on community input and a public input prior to this contract negotiation process is to put a spotlight on the negotiations before they take place. No one knows that they're negotiating right now. The public rarely knows the details of what that negotiation is, what's taking place with the negotiation. And also there's a second component that's going to be introduced this upcoming Thursday, where 30 days prior to the contract closing, there's another public input process that has to take place. And what this does is when the administration, which ultimately comes down to the mayor and his team negotiating with the FOP, it puts a spotlight on that whole process. So it can't be a process where they're engaging in any type of conversation in which they cannot say that we don't have the issues and concerns of the public while we're going through this process. Most people don't even know that they're negotiating. They recently were just negotiating for a 1-year extension contract because of COVID-19. So we want to spotlight that process as much as possible because we do recognize that at the end of the day, the FOP does carry a lot of sway when it comes to their members, when it comes to this whole process. And we want to hold them accountable and make sure that at least as we deal with the issues of police misconduct, folks are held accountable and the process is transparent.
Yeah, because that's transparency, because nobody knows what happens. No. Nobody knows. And will this new civic review board, this new civil review board, will they be able to recommend or get rid of somebody and then have them not come back? Because I remember when Commissioner Ramsey was here, same thing with Alaska. All of them complained about the exact same thing. We got rid of these people. They came back. A lot of the folks who were called out because of the racist Facebook post back. So how do you will this board be able to do that?
I think beyond the board, the board will basically have subpoena power and they'll call individuals on the carpet. But beyond that, to your point, it starts with the administration process. And when they negotiate in that contract, right? What are the rules of engagement in terms of how you discipline officers for misconduct? And so before they even get to that process, the reason why we have the public hearings because it holds accountable the administration while they negotiate. And so you can't wiggle out of saying we don't know that this is a major issue that the public is pushing for when we have in these hearings and things are documented on the record before you even go inside the room and start negotiating.
Yeah. And I want to just give a couple of shout outs to people here. They're tagging a lot of friends. Yes, tag people, share this video, let everybody know, because the hearings are going to be the big thing for this Wednesday. Thank you to everybody who's tuning in. Everybody says you're active. A lot of people giving you love here on the live. And so what would be a good outcome for tomorrow? Because you're gonna have testimony. A lot's gonna be happening. What can people expect?
At the end of the day, the commissioner who I support, and I think that she's coming to the city of Philadelphia. She jumped in, her feet in the fire, and I think she's moving forward and doing a good job. And we need to continue supporting her in this process as well, because she's made some tough decisions thus far. We want her to know that she's not alone in this process as long as she's standing up for the people. Tomorrow we're hearing where the Philadelphia Police Department will talk about what's in their budget, how they're going to be actually spending their money. There will also be an opportunity for council members to also walk them through their process and ask questions and concerns. But at the end of the day, the reforms that took place today are about moving the city of Philadelphia forward when it comes to the issue of policing. The issue around not providing a $19 million increase, right, gives us an opportunity to have a conversation about not defunding, but reallocating, right?
Yep.
How we distribute resources that can also make our city safer. You don't have to continuously invest in the law enforcement side to think our city is going to be safe. Let's get more young people the opportunities to have not just summer jobs, but year-round jobs. Let's make sure when that person does come home from juvie hall or prison, they have an opportunity to have gainful employment so they won't go back out on the street and get involved in a life of crime and drugs. And also, we can't forget the issue of mental health, right? Yeah. And addiction, right? We have a lot of young people that engage in that type of behavior, but we need to be investing in making sure that they have the type of support that they need that, again, won't lead them down that line of getting involved in crime and violence. And at the end of the day, that takes away a lot of the pressure, right, and other responsibilities that officers have to deal with. They're not social workers, right? So it's because we know they're not social workers, let's address the issue of crime and violence as a health epidemic, and let's start investing in those areas from a holistic standpoint with the actual budget funds that we have.
Yeah. And so how do we keep the pressure on? Because right now, we got the National Guard here. Everything is quieting down. I was at the reopening of the Parkside, ShopRite over there, Brown ShopRite. People are trying to rebuild. Money's coming down the pike from the state. Folk are going to have hopefully the opportunity to put their businesses back on track. How do we keep the pressure on to make this progress so that folks won't revert back to the burning stuff up? Council member, it could go there.
Yes, I know that. Well, the same thing, I had a conversation with some individuals about this whole process. This is just the beginning, right? And we know the public is going to hold us accountable, and I encourage them to hold us all accountable, right? In city council, on the state level, our working group, even on the congressional level, right? To make sure we are working together, right? Not only get these reforms enacted, but also taking the next step forward. Like, again, I heard the comments and the people always saying, well, how come the bad cops keep coming back after they're being fired, right? Those are the type issues that we all have to work collectively on to address to make sure that public trust isn't destroyed as a result of individuals engaging in bad conduct and still coming back. We also call on the officers who are doing a good job, right? Who are doing the right things for the right reasons, right? Who do not agree with police misconduct. We still encourage them to step up. And when they do step up and speak out, that we support them and have their backs as well. Because that's the only way we want to change this process. But I believe collectively we continuously work together around this issue, that we will continuously see progress as we move forward.
Yeah, there's a lot to do here. And I tweeted today, that, this is step one. This, stopping sanctioned violence against Black and brown people is step one. The next step, of course, is making sure people of color have access to capital, to
That's the main one.
And we got all these people marching right now, of all races. But councilman, when we start talking about that cash, you think all those people gonna still be there, brother?
Listen, I'm hoping that's the case, right? Because again, beyond the protests, right? Beyond the organizing, right? And everybody coming from everywhere to participate and hashtagging, and I watched the marches and the protests Saturday, everybody there, right? But we need to talk about economic wealth, right? Really addressing the issue of poverty, the redistribution of wealth, right? Because you talk about crime and violence, statistics have shown areas where there's high poverty, you find crime and you find violence. So that's why we want to reallocate the funds from that budget to help those areas that definitely need support. But you are definitely right. When we talk about not only diversity and inclusion around construction jobs, let's talk about professional services contracts. Let's talk about who get the PR contracts in the city of Philadelphia, who get the law firm contracts in the city of Philadelphia, who get the cleaning contract in the city of Philadelphia. That's the next conversation that we need to have when we talk about true diversity and inclusion, because prior to COVID-19, we see all this development taking place all throughout the city of Philadelphia, but we have to sit down and look at who's actually getting the business, not just subcontracts, but who's the prime contracts, who's getting the prime contracts. And I'm hoping that the mayor has a new steering committee.
Did the dog get you?
Yeah, she did. Yes,
She better be glad she cute.
Say hey, Sasha. Hello.
She better be glad she cute.
so there's a steering committee, right? Mm-hmm. That the mayor is creating, and part of that conversation that has to happen is around economic wealth building.
Yeah,
in the American community, because that goes beyond we just having a conversation about race and racism and systematic racism and what institutional racism is. We know, right? And so let's figure out a game plan on how we address the issue of poverty by helping people basically rise out of poverty through building wealth. And so that was a great component that you talked about, and I'm all for it. So.
Yeah, and that's the next step. But first, you got to get this police reform. You got to get this fear off the streets, and you got to stop this mass incarceration. So, just want to give you some comments as we get ready to wrap up. People are saying trust Black women. Jasmine Sessom saying that when we talk about our new commissioner Danielle Outlaw, and I gotta show she came in, all hell broke loose. Yeah. Literally, she came in February 10th. By March 16th, we were on lockdown. I mean, what a crazy quarter for her. And it says, yes, she did not create this problem, says Hania. Folks want to support her. People say that all of this is a process. Carla says we got to talk about redistribution of wealth, and I think it's going to get real prickly as soon as you start talking about that cash. And you laughing because
listen, let me tell you something.
It's going to get prickly.
Listen, you have people marching from London, Saudi Arabia, right, Southeast Asia. We had so many people that came into the city from all the surrounding counties, and we marched in solidarity. I'm sure they're going to support the redistribution of wealth and help build economic power in the city of Philadelphia. We have to address the issue of poverty, and I believe people will be on board.
I'm glad you said that with basically a straight face. I'm glad you said that, because it's going to be another fight, because it took a lot to get to this place to deal with police brutality. And so we have to go to the next level. And so Cheryl had a long comment. She said, shout out to Jordan and Kenyatta, both South Philadelphians, as a 4th generation South Philadelphian who raised a 5th. Proud to say that. Also, please create a multi-generational strategic approach as part of any and all next steps. Millennials have the energy and exposure to technology. Boomers have the knowledge, experience, citywide networks. Folks have been out here doing similar work for decades. Let's bring all those skills to the table, build beyond what's been done. We need to make sure. And can I just say, everybody forget about Generation X. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, you know, Generation X, they late 30s and 40s. Y'all act like, you know, the Gen X don't even exist.
I think I'm Gen X. I'm something like that. I thank State Rep Jordan Harris for bringing me in and saying, come on, you can be part of the group, you know. And so, you know, at the end of the day, it's passing down that knowledge and being supportive of one another, right? And empowering one another. I think the Young Guns took over the State House yesterday, right? And I was proud to see that.
Did.
Now they have a special session on police reform. But that's what it's about if we're going to move forward as a community. We got to support one another, be on the same accord, sharing the same agenda, because ultimately our people need us.
Yeah. And Carla Smith Flanagan says you're going to have to fight for it. And I want to shout out Jordan Harris. He couldn't be here today. He's on the House floor doing the very same thing. Yeah. You're going to be in City Council tomorrow doing that.
Yes.
And, you know, you got Kiera Bradford Gray doing her thing over at the Defenders Association. I mean, folks have basically been put in position to really, I think, if done right, and with a collective vision to actually get ish done.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe we will. You know, and this is, again, inspiring. Everybody rowing in the same direction. Everybody's passionate about the same thing. And at the end of the day, it's just about getting it done because our people need us. They're depending on us. And I know they'll hold us accountable.
Yeah. And this Generation Z, they got cojones.
I know that's right.
They're like, look, y'all gonna get it done, or we gonna come up in here. You like, okay, y'all, we get
that's correct.
So congratulations to y'all squad, the coalition of progressive young Black leaders out here. Seeing all y'all out there, young. It was only like a couple of gray hairs in there. It was like more Black ghosts. I was like, okay,
true.
And that's very different from what we normally see in leadership in Philadelphia specifically. So as somebody's been covering this, you know, for the past several years, it was like, wow, you know, for me to see that. Right. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Final words, you know, as we continue, what is besides this, what is the other, is there another big thing you concerned about?
You know, it's mainly just making sure that when we come up in this upcoming budget process, it's an equitable and social justice budget that's going to support individuals who are vulnerable, right? Primarily Black and brown people. And also, I want people to still remember COVID-19 is still alive. So there are still people who need to get tested, right? There are still individuals who are still dying, right? And this virus is still spreading. And so it's something that's serious. I think we were kind of distracted, right? Because obviously we had some more pressing issues, but we also want to remind people that they need to take care of themselves, continue doing the things that you need to do so you will not catch the coronavirus. And most importantly, if you are asymptomatic, you don't take it home to have an impact on someone else who may also, if they get infected, they can have dire consequences. And so I just want to remind people that COVID-19 is still alive and kicking, and we just want to take care of ourselves, and we still have to fight that fight as well.
Yeah, shout out to Angie Bird, reminding those who've been out in the protest to go and get tested. Luckily, you know, access to testing is growing. And with that, I want to just say thank you so much. I hope y'all follow Councilmember Kenyatta Johnson on Twitter. He's on IG. He's on Facebook. Check him out. Always, you know, on the front lines of a lot of things. And we appreciate you.
Thank you.
And good luck tomorrow. I'm sure we'll chat again. Thank you so much, Councilmember Kenyatta Johnson, for being on Real Talk with Cherri.
Keep up the good work. God bless.
Thank you very much. You have a good evening. So that was today's show. If y'all missed our first segment, we had Michael Days, the Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion, for the first half hour. That was Councilmember Kenyatta Johnson. We had State Representative Jordan Harris. He was supposed to be here, but I'll have him on at a different time. He is currently on the floor in Harrisburg and could not break away. So as you can see, there has been, we had, you know, a little bit of a dust up. There goes Rep Harris. Rep Harris, we about to tune out. I'm gonna bring him in for a second. Rep Harris, how you doing? Your audio, you gotta turn it.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I was just logging out.
No, No, we ain't logging out. No, I'm here.
We just had Councilman Kenyatta Johnson on here. He talked about the major welcome. First of all, how you doing out there in Harrisburg?
Literally just got off the floor of the House.
Yeah. So since you're here, like hopefully some folks, y'all stick with us for a couple more minutes. So you guys have been busy because Councilman Kenyatta Johnson talked about the upcoming hearings tomorrow here in Philadelphia. He talked about what the mayor has decided not to give the Philadelphia Police Department $19 million to the budget. What has happened on the state level? Because I know the governor has agreed to some stuff too.
Yeah, so you know that myself and a group of legislators, and I'm gonna pull up their names because I want to make sure I include everybody, but Representatives McClinton, Dawkins, Cephas, Bullock, Burgos, Austin Davis, Summer Lee, Malcolm Kenyatta, Jake Wheatley, as well as council members Kendra Brooks, Kathy Gilmore Richardson, Isaiah Thomas, and Councilman Johnson, and three lawyers, Kevin Mincy, Kevin Harding, and the chief defender, Akira Bradford Gray, have been working together on we call ourselves the police. Oh, and Representative Chris Rabb, we call ourselves Police Reform Working Group. Right, that's the document. So we last Tuesday, we put out a 5 bucket document. One of the things that the governor could do, 2 things that the General Assembly could do, 3 things that the mayor could do, 4 things that city council could do, and 5, the last thing is things that happen at the collective bargaining table. So we did that on Tuesday. I think it was Thursday that the governor made an announcement following some of our recommendations. He said that he will create a deputy inspector general position in his office that will be able to track what's going on at the state police level, because that's the jurisdiction he has to talk about, to look into brutality, excessive force, waste, fraud, and abuse, and things at that level. Then the Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, came out, and Josh Shapiro has been working with law enforcement from across the state, the FOP on the city level, the police commissioners from Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, several chiefs of police from across the state, the DA's Association, and the statewide FOP. He got them together to agree on a data bill. Now, let me explain why this is important. Right now, if a police officer is fired from one jurisdiction and goes to another jurisdiction, the jurisdiction that is hiring them does not see the complaints that they may have from the last jurisdiction. So you could be a Temple police officer, go be a UPenn police officer, have a problem at both departments, go apply to be a Philadelphia police officer, and Philadelphia police doesn't know about the complaints that you had at Temple or Drexel. In the case of Antoine Rose, who was a young man who was shot in the back and killed out in Pittsburgh, the police officer that killed him had complaints in a previous police department, but the police department that hired him didn't know about him because there's nothing that requires that to happen. So the Attorney General got all of those groups together, and they agree, right? They agree to this legislation, which is a database for police complaints. So that's what happened last week. Just today, the mayor, and I'm sure Councilman Johnson talked about a little bit of this, but the mayor put out a statement. His administration has been privately working with the Police Reform Work Group, and his administration agreed to several different things that we recommended in our platform. He's going to do a deputy inspector general. Here's why that's important. In the city of Philadelphia, the inspector general has the power of subpoena. So this office will be able to subpoena and do investigations on what's actually going on with policing in Philadelphia. They're going to do public hearing in the police contract. How do we have police contracts that go on and nobody ever knows what's in the contract until the contract is signed? They're going to do public hearing, and they're going to do a whole lot of things. I think the mayor's probably like a good 10 things out of the mayoral things that he can do, and he's agreed to support some of the things at the collective bargaining table. So it's been a lot of stuff that we've been trying to work on with regards to policing. And then up here in Harrisburg, we had a big day yesterday, so it's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, and I heard Councilman Kenyatta Johnson talked about how y'all up there, shutting it down. in Harrisburg.
Yeah. So yesterday, members of the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus and some of the members of the Democratic Caucus literally took over the speaker's rostrum and would not allow session to continue. Shout out to Representative Summer Lee from Allegheny County for organizing that action, that direct action on the floor of the House. So some people have criticized that action, but the truth is, for us, we could not allow business as usual to continue to happen in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives when we see so many people taking to the streets, protesting and acting in civil unrest about all of the things that are happening in policing, but not just policing, happening in communities where we see inequities in education, inequities in hiring, inequities in healthcare, and a whole lot of things. So we could not allow business as usual happen. So members took the rostrum and had a Black Lives Matter banner on the rostrum, and they shut off the microphones, they shut off the TV, the cameras. So we started broadcasting live on Facebook and on all of our social media platforms, so people could see and hear what was happening. Session was we did not have session yesterday, and what I can tell you is that this morning and throughout the morning we've been meeting with the leadership, the Republican side of the aisle. And next Monday, the Judiciary Committee is going to run two bills out of the committee, and they're going to amend two bills into those bills. One of the bills that they will amend in is Representative Rabb's bill that does exactly what we talked about with the data, with the database, so that we can track police complaints. And the other one is Representative Dawkins' bill will be amended into a bill that talks about mental health screening for officers every other year and 30 days after they've been involved in using lethal force. Think about this, Cherri. Our officers see a lot of crazy things all day, every day, right? When's the last time any of them have had any psychological evaluations to check on them and check on their health and their well-being? So those two different bills will be amended in. We've also got support from the Speaker of the House to have a special session. So we're working with the governor to decide if that is the right course of action, so that we can discuss all of the other bills that quite honestly need to happen and need to be moved in the Pennsylvania House and the Senate and move to the governor's desk, so we can address police brutality and police oversight in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Lot going on. You guys have been busy and getting work done. And I got to ask you the same question I asked Councilman KJ over here. I asked him, do you think all of this movement, because things are moving really fast, things are happening really fast in like days versus usually months. It took months to tee up probation reform. You know what I'm saying? Years almost.
Yeah.
Do you think any of this would have been moving like the lightning speed is moving if the Generation Z had tore stuff up?
Well, look, I appreciate all of the activists in the street who are taking to the streets and protesting, because the truth is, it is their direct action in the street that I think that I know has highlighted the need for change and has pushed people to address these issues. We've been talking about, look, the bills that I told you about, the police reform bills in the legislature, they were introduced last year. We were meeting last year trying to get folks to the table and all that kind of stuff last year. And I think what you see now is because of all that is happening, people are responding. So, I'm grateful to all of the activists who are on the ground. We had the police reform work group had a call with several of those activists. We got the mayor's administration to agree to meet with those activists as well. So, we are grateful to them taking it to the streets. And because of that action, legislators, both at the city and state level, have been able to go and try to push forward systemic change. Because this is a moment in time, but that moment has to create a movement so that we can actually see systemic change. If we leave this moment with just a decrease in the police budget for this year, if we leave this moment with just having those things, we have missed an opportunity to actually put changes in place that will prevent the next Antoine Rose, the next George Floyd, the next David Jones. We have to put things in place now while we have the opportunity so that we see systemic change. And that happens quite honestly through the legislative process and through the negotiation of the contract.
Yeah, because I mean, I will tell you that seeing these young people, and I had somebody say to me, with all due respect, Miss Cherri, y'all been Martin Luther King in it for a long time. You know, sometimes you got to do something a little more, you know, that people feel a little more. And it's like, in order to keep that quiet, in order to keep the peace, it's like you guys have to do your work. You have to get it done. And do you think because I mean, like, how long do you think this momentum will stay? Or are you not worried about that? You worried about just, you know, getting as much through as you can while it's here.
Well, foot is on the gas, but we will not allow the structure to forget the pain that is happening and has continued to happen in the Black community for generations. I think what you're seeing is, you know, different generations had different ways of handling things, and each thing was necessary at that particular time. And for us, I think what we're doing is we're building on what we've seen in the past, but now it's time for us to get more done. And for me, it's like foot on the gas moment right now, because you know, there's so many things that need to change. And again, I want people to be clear on where I stand. This is not just about police reform. Police reform is just one step. We need to tackle and tear down the system that has systematically oppressed us for generations around inequities in education, inequities in healthcare, inequities in employment, inequities in our criminal justice system. Like, we need to engage on all of those things, because it's extremely important that we address those things so that we don't have this problem in the next 5 or the next 10 years. And then we have to wait for the next t-shirt or hashtag. Like, for us, we're not doing that. And what you saw yesterday in the House, I've never seen, nor have I heard of members taking over the House the way that we did yesterday. And that happened. And here's the thing: it happened with Black legislators and our white allies standing with us, saying that, you know, we're not going to conduct business as usual, and we're going to get results. We're going to get results, or we're going to see more actions across this Commonwealth to actually bring people's attention to the fact that things need to change. I think it was Fannie Lou Hamer said that sometimes you get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah, I think we got there. I want to give you some of these comments. W.T.
Sure.
Martin said Representative Summer Lee is the truth. Asa Khalif said courage is the first step to real change. Keep it going. They say another person shouting out Summer Lee. They said, not playing. Jake Weekly is the family as well. Cheryl A. Mobley Stimpson said, congratulations, Jordan. Proud of your work. Proactive and strategic collaboration and communication always moves the needle. So there she go. Asa says, make sure you all engage with local activists in Philly. You will definitely need our input. So I'm sure you're doing that, hopefully. Charito Morales says, yes to psychology testing. Yes to all PPD in all levels. So lots of yeses. Van Brown has a question about bringing people together like police, churches, officials, and community leaders to keep the peace in our community. There still are so many stores that are still closed. How do you deal with the aftermath of this?
Well, I mean, there were already resources coming to the state because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and you know, we worked in the House and the Senate to do $225 million in small business funds that will come to the city, that will come to the state of Pennsylvania, 225 for the whole state to talk about small businesses. And we need to rebuild small businesses and support small businesses. But the truth is, we also have to fix the structural inequity that we have and have had in our communities for generations. That has to change. There will be no one to shop at your small business if that person continues to go to work 40 hours a week and still can't afford to pay their light bill. There will be no one to shop at your small business if that brother or sister who comes out of the criminal justice system cannot become gainfully employed because of something they did 10 and 15 years ago. Black businesses will thrive and will do well when Black folk are economically stable and are given given equal footing in the economy of this country. So we have to also address those systematic things that have hindered us for far too long. And quite honestly, we're tired of talking about it. I don't, no more symposiums on what to do. Let's just do it. And here's the thing. I am not saying it's going to be easy. No, I'm not. But we cannot become weary in well doing. For in due season we shall reap if we faint not.
Yeah, and I just hope those allies stick with the process, because one of the things I said, we talked about with Councilman Johnson is, a lot of people agree. We all agree that state-sanctioned violence against Black and brown people should not happen. But when you talk about chopping up the cash, making sure equal access to capital, equal access to opportunity, you hope you don't lose people when that time comes.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that there could be opportunity for that. But I think what we're seeing is we're seeing folks who are asking the question of, why can't all folks have? And I think we have been sucked into this mindset of the system that pins us against them. And I just don't think that has to be the case. I think there's a different way to do things, and the different way to do things is to unleash everybody's possibility equally. That starts with children having a quality education. That starts with people being forgiven when they're coming out of our criminal justice system. That starts with making sure that they have quality health care. That, all of those things matter. But it also starts when I can drive my car and not feel threatened when the red and blue lights come on behind me. So I think what you've seen here is that when the knee went down on the neck of George Floyd, I think you saw a lot of people who felt like that situation could have been them, and folks got scared that what's happening to Black and brown folks could happen to other people, and folks were nervous and scared about that and said we need to stand up because it's important for us to address these issues. And I think the thing is, people, I believe people really want to see wholesale change in how we do things.
I hope that truly happens. Got to press you a little bit, because Asa Khalif says many activists who are labeled controversial wasn't invited to your meeting, Jordan. Next meeting, invite them. You're going to need all of us if this will work. I
got you, Asa, but I don't know who was deemed controversial that wasn't invited, nor did I put together the invitation list. But everybody knows that I'm extremely accessible, so feel free to reach out. I mean, wait. We took over the House of Representatives yesterday. I mean, it don't get no controversial than that. I was making phone calls to make sure people don't get arrested. You know what I mean? So, look, I've never shied away from controversy, particularly when it has to do with my people. So, hit me up, bro.
Yeah, shout out to Cheyenne Beasley. She's a new graduate with a journalism degree, wants to get involved. Says, get ready, strap it on. Lots of work to do. And so I want to say thank you, Jordan. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on Real Talk with Cherri.
I apologize. I was late. I was on the floor doing the people's, but I was texting y'all like, "Yo, tell her I'm coming. I'm trying to wrap this up so I can get on there." I had to be on Real Talk. I feel like I made it. Like, Mama, I made it.
Oh my God. Look, and it's funny how people, are willing to come on Real Talk. We're trying to take the message to the people.
Right.
We get a lot of shares and views. So I appreciate you coming on, talking and being accessible to the folk here. And keep up the work, man. It's not easy, but I'm glad to see things happening. In real time.
Absolutely, so I appreciate you. Take care now.
Good rest. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, y'all. See, I got Representative Jordan Harris on here. They've been busy. And so we're grateful for him coming on after a long day in Harrisburg. And so I got a wonderful show lined up for you on Thursday. Can't wait to share it with you. I'll be promoting it beginning tomorrow. And then I'll be right here Thursday at 8 p.m. for another, usually Real Talk is an hour, but I didn't want to, Rep. Harris had a chance to come on, so we wanted to have him on here. So here we go. Can't let up. Yes. Cheryl, you made the observation that folks shown on your video last Saturday didn't look like you. I won't say that. Not all of them. It was all different types of people. All different types of people. I was thinking, we need diversity in newsrooms as well. And I got to give a shout out to KYW. We do have they've worked really hard to diversify our newsroom. So I wasn't alone out there. covering these issues. I had Justin Udo, who's an excellent reporter. Antoinette Lee's been on the ground. We have an editor, Cherri Day. We had J. Scott Smith on the anchor desk. We had Ariane Fulcher, running some of the boards and stuff like that. So lots of diversity, specifically with regard to Black journalists in our newsroom. So I'm really excited and proud to be a part of that. And we're given a lot of freedom to do what we need to do. And so with this, I want to say thank you guys for always supporting me. Please share this video, tag a friend. They want to know what happened to the Inquirer. More to come on that. PABJ is meeting with them on Thursday. And then folks who want to know about the police reforms. The big hearing is tomorrow at City Council. More things to come. We talk about that today. So tag a friend, share this video. Let's elevate the conversation, y'all. And I'm very accessible. If you have story ideas, segment ideas, hit me up. Let me know. You never know. They may end up on Real Talk. They may end up on Flashpoint. They could end up on KYW or NBC 10. You never know. So thank you guys for all your support. And thank you to everybody, by the way. Just wanted to rant a bit before I jump off of here. I want to show y'all, for everybody who commented on the video, the kente cloth. I had more than 100+ people comment on this. Thank you guys. Digging around, what we learned is that the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, actually suggested that the Congress members wear this outfit. So wear this outfit right here. Was suggested by the Congressional Black Caucus. It looked like a stunt. A lot of people were stunned by it, shocked by it. I'm not mad at them personally, but I do think it's very distracting. So I had to pull that up. Thank you guys for the more than 100 people who commented on my question. Love your engagement. I'm going to try to post questions like this every couple of days because I love hearing what you guys have to say. But there it is. There it is. Okay. We're going to leave it there. And on that note, thank you guys. I'm Cherri Gregg. This has been Real Talk with Cherri. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you Thursday at 8 o'clock. And Real Talk streams live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday during this time. And I thank you for all your support. Bye-bye.